Okay, I think we're live now. Hi, everyone. My name is Brody Chivers. I work for 55 Degrees as the Partnerships Manager here. I'm here today to help host the webinar, Measuring What Matters, all about Agile Maturity and metrics that drive change. So to start things off, I'll kick it over to Margot. She can give herself an introduction and we can get going.
Hi everyone, my name is Margot. I'm the head of customer experience at 55 Degrees. And I'm just really happy to provide some insights on the metrics today. Hassan?
Lovely, thank you very much, Margot. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone, wherever you're dialing in. My name is Hassan Khadro. I'm a senior project manager and Agile Coach at Automation Consultants. And really looking forward to sharing with you our insights, the wisdom that we've collected to talk about measurements and what matters in the context of Agile Maturity. Agile Maturity is something that we provide at Automation Consultants, who are a company based in the UK. We are an IT consultancy providing Agile and DevOps support. We're one of the earliest platinum partners of Atlassian in the UK. We're also partners with the likes of Monday.com, AWS, and others. And really looking forward to sharing insights that we've acquired to everybody attending. Perhaps you can learn a little bit more about 55 Degrees as well, Marco.
Yes.
So I was going to say, hang on, you forgot partners of 55 Degrees as well, most importantly. Just wanted to get that one in. Margo, you're good.
Yeah, so at 55 Degrees, so we're a Swedish company. We're based in Sweden, and we currently develop different products on the Atlassian Marketplace, Azure Marketplace, and as a standalone as well, to help them becoming more predictable, having more control over their work, and managing to do more with less stress. So that's our whole goal with the company.
Awesome, thanks, guys. So what we would also love to encourage is, connect with us. Hassan and Margot are really, really smart people and experts in their field. So feel free to add them on LinkedIn and connect with them, and fire away questions. I think the link should be in the chat. One of our colleagues here at 55 Degrees, Eloise, will be has volunteered to handle the chat today. So she'll be moderating that one. Sorry. So also in there, you might notice to the right, there's also a Q&A panel. So we would also encourage you throughout the webinar to fire your questions away. We love questions, get a lot of questions. During the webinar, Hassan and Margot will try and answer some where they can via text, and at the end, we will have a 15-minute sort of fourth Q&A live to wrap things up. And if you don't get your question answered, I'll be sure to make sure we follow it up in a post-webinar email to you as well. So feel free to start firing away as soon as you like. Cool. Awesome. I wanted to make the webinar a little more fun today, encourage some more interaction, stuff like that. So I've come up with the grand idea of doing some giveaways as we go live. What we have on offer today is we have some copies of Daniel Vacanti's, all based around flow metrics, actionable agile metrics for predictability. So it's a lot of the theory about what we're talking today. Along with that, we also have a session from Margot, more if you're an actionable agile user. It can be about actionable agile, it can be about Jira, whatever you like. But Margot's a PQT and she knows everything about actionable agile, so analytics. So we'll be sure to connect you with her. Hassan, you also wanted to offer up this one. Maybe you can go into more details.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're providing free Agile health checkup, which essentially sees one of our Agile consultants coming and delivering over the course of 1 or 2 weeks, a few hours, equivalent of half a day, of observing key sessions with yourself and your team, reviewing practices, maybe delivering a short action plan with 1 or 2 low-hanging fruits, quick wins that you can apply right away, something that's free, practical, and personalized to your team and organization.
Awesome. That's a hot ticket there. Great. So how the ways will work during the presentation today. We love movies at 55 Degrees. So what I thought we'd do is we'll try and sneak movie titles throughout the webinar. So Whenever you spot one, feel free to drop it in the chat right away. So the first correct answer in there will win a prize. One of the prizes will reach out to you after the webinar. I'm pretty sure Eloise will confirm with you as well what the prize might, if you're the successful winner. So yeah, keep watching right until the end because there's prizes throughout. Yeah, super excited to do this. Hopefully it makes it a bit more fun and engaging, but we'll see. Cool. So the agenda today, we're going to start off with Hassan talking about Agile Maturity, measurable change. Then we'll pass things over to Margot to go into data, metrics, and linking that to maturity. And as mentioned, we will finish up with some next steps and a live Q&A. So super excited for this one. And as we like to do with our webinars, we might get things started off with a poll. So in the side channel there, you should see a poll start to pop up. So the question we're asking today is, how does your organization currently use data to guide its agile improvement and change? So it's more like we just want to sort of gauge the room, see where everyone's at. That's the purpose of the poll, purely. And if you have some stories to tell, feel free to put them in the chat as well. That's always fun. Everyone has battle scars. So we'll let this sit for another 20 seconds or so. Seems to be a clear winner so far. Okay. All right, we'll close the voting in a few seconds here. Okay. Great, so hopefully you shots on screen there. So there's a bit of consistency across the poll with the winner, which we like to see, is that you analyze flow data. So there are people, but it's fine if you're not there. That's the point of today as well. So great. So we'll stuck in now. So what I might do is pass it off to Hassan here to kick things off. So me and Margot will go off camera here, and Hassan will take the wheel for a while. Over to you.
Thank you, Brody. So everyone, I'd like to start a little bit talking about progress as a concept and potential truth around it versus the illusion, and really talk why measurement, in effect, defines agility. Let me first start asking you a question. What if your agile transformation, the one that you're going through, the one that you've just been through, the one that you're planning for, looks or looked or could be looking as fast-moving, progressing, things are happening, but it's actually just standing still? This is just noise, but there's no signal. I say this because, or I ask this because most organizations, they say they are agile, but are they doing agile or truly being agile? Because many, when asked, cannot prove that there is an improvement going on. They can't prove that they are improving. And we argue that without measurement, agility is nothing but just theater, ticking boxes. If it's not measured, it probably is not happening. So really just want to lead with that sort of direction. When we look at some stats from State of Agility reports that 71%, back in 2023, 71% of organizations report that they use Agile in their software development lifecycle. It's the norm. But then 84% at the time acknowledged they were below a high level of competency. Now, fast forward to 2025, and you see that the metrics or the stats suggest that 95% of professionals are affirming Agile's critical relevance to their day-to-day operations. But the scary bit is that only 7% would report high level of proficiency. I mean, what's going on there? 7%. So perhaps we can interpret this as there was a bit of an Agile bubble. Everybody wanted to be part of the theme, part of the story, everybody riding that Agile wave, but people did not understand what Agile is all about. So maybe that were a little bit of dissonance, a bit of disconnect. So here we're talking about Agile maturity of organizations and how we can define it and perhaps redefine it after what we experienced over the past decade or so. And in specific, I'm going to address the measurable aspect of Agile transformation, because that's what Agile maturity is all about. So what does Agile maturity really mean? It means how adaptable the organization is, how adaptable the team or the squad or the department, how adaptable are you as an individual working in that environment. It's about you learning faster, failing fast, you delivering predictably, and wasting less resources, less time, less effort. It's certainly not about just ticking boxes and complying with a checklist. And if you were to stress test this, you can say Agile maturity is your ability to be agile under pressure, not just say it in theory. Now, I don't know if many of the attendees today have been through an Agile maturity exercise, maybe been part of it, or perhaps even led an Agile maturity assessment within your team or organization. But in essence, the way it works is that it's a gap analysis exercise. A gap analysis exercise where you have a current state where you are, you have a target state where you want to be, and you're trying to bridge that gap between the two. Normally, what you do is you just start with an exercise of discovery, perhaps an audit. You have workshops, interviews with department heads or team leads or actual individuals in the team, because you want to get and extract that context. You want to understand what are the pain points that are keeping people concerned. Where are the friction points in the interactions, in the dynamic? And you take that information, you analyze it, you assess it, perhaps across different themes. And these themes could be under people, teams, strategy, culture, leadership, tools, operations, delivery, whatever it is, whatever you decide, whatever has been defined between yourself and the leading team as to what is most relevant. Now you take that and you start expanding and projecting and creating a roadmap, something that you can measure. So you are defining a measurable roadmap that help you, as a result, to devise an improvement action plan. And this action plan can include the quick wins, can include the short-term wins, can include the long-term, the medium-term, whatever it is. Essentially, with the team, with the department, with the organization, you conduct that gap analysis exercise so that you manage to design what that target state looks like over a certain time frame and how to get there. Now, we are obviously focusing on measurements and how to collect data and track metrics, etc. So when you want to conduct an Agile maturity assessment that actually is effective in achieving its purpose, you are combining, on the one hand, qualitative insights. This is the feedback that you collect from the team, perhaps also qualitative data and scores that you capture in questionnaires and surveys that you ask different stakeholders to fill. You combine that with metrics that quantify agility. While some of them might be quantitative data you collect from your surveys and questionnaires, they can also be flow metrics that you can collect from some data analytics tools or your charts or whatnot. And that allows you to link maturity improvement to some measurable outcomes. You define what are your intended outcomes here, how can you turn them into measurable outcomes, such as delivery speed, stability, predictability. Now, I want to bring the C word, culture, because I argue that data without culture will eventually or immediately lead to stagnation. Metrics fail if viewed as control. And if you want to have any form of adoption of an improved way of doing things, an improved level of Agile maturity, you really need to precede that with trust. And here comes the element of culture. Data culture values learning. Think about how beautiful that is. The idea that we collect data so that we can continuously learn. So some practical tips for improved adoption of Agile ways of working and improving Agile maturity. Always start with the why. Why are we doing this? Why are we trying to become more mature from an Agile point of view? And use your opportunities to reflect and give and receive feedback. Use your retrospectives as the predictable point for discussing your metrics. And please, I'll say this now, I'll repeat it again, do not forget to celebrate those small wins, the feeling that gives you that something is happening, something is progressing, and keeps moving you forward. I actually feel like maybe I'll grab a glass of water right now, and I feel like handing over to Brody, who can share a case study that I think resonates well with this. Brody, over to you.
I'm back, baby. Here we go. Thanks, Hassan. Cool. So I also thought this was a really cool story to share with you guys as well. So you may know Rita. She's helped us out with some webinars in the past. She's a star. She works for Spectrix. They're based in the UK, a technical company. So she shared this story with us following the team's implementation of Actionable Agile Analytics, which some of you may be familiar with. And I just wanted to share this because it relates super well with exactly what Hassan was just saying. So how they use the data for action. So, and, as you can see there in the wording, they were sharing the metrics, they weren't controlling the metrics. Remember Rita telling me about how the teams were, it almost became addictive that they would keep sending each other these new charts looking at data, which I thought was really cool as well. And thanks to that, they were able to reclaim that that time for collaboration and other improvements. And I think that's just a really, really great way to look at a rollout of using metrics in an agile sense. So then if we go to how I guess the results of the data, I also just wanted to share that as well. So it's not all fluff, right? So Rita was happy to share that previously the delivery managers living in Microsoft Excel, probably not stranger to many of you, so feel free to share in the chat if that might be you. They were able to cut their 85th percentile cycle time by 60% in less than 3 months, which was super impressive to see. And then also, Rita shared a great story about how they had a very tight deadline with a key project. And using the data, they were able to see that they most likely were not going to meet that deadline. So they were able to, reallocate, get some extra hands on board to help them out. And as a result, they were able to deliver that. And I remember when Rita told me about it, she said that everyone went up when they actually finalized that project. So I thought it was a super sweet story, and I'm just happy to share with you all. So I might need Hassan to come back now to take over the wheel. Cool.
Thank you, Brody.
All right.
I love to see real life. Thank you. I love to see the real life examples of things actually working. Now, whether you are driving change or experiencing and being impacted by it, change, as many of you have heard before, is the only constant in life. And it's all about us positioning ourselves so that we can manage that. So how can measurement guide an effective change exercise? I'll share with you another interesting stat here. About 70% of organizational transformation, according to McKinsey last year, and change exercises tend to fail. And why is that? Well, it's mainly due to either employee resistance or the lack of support from leadership. I don't know if many of you have been through that recently or a while back or actually going through it right now, but I know it's very common. I've been through it. Drop us a message in the chat. Just tell us, here, I've seen this. It happens, still happening, whatever it is. Share with me your stories of anything that you've experienced when it comes to organizational transformation that just didn't feel like it's working. And while a lot of you may be sharing their thoughts, let me tell you about my experience of managing the challenge of change. I say every improvement, however you scale it, is a change initiative. If you're going down the route of how you can improve your agile maturity, that's a change initiative. And with change, you'll see all sorts of issues, challenges, problems. One of the main ones that I mentioned already is about the resistance of people. And people will resist what they don't understand. And it's completely natural. There's nothing wrong with it. It happens to all of us. If anybody disrupts our environment, our comfort zone, of course we're going to resist it. We're going to be feeling scared, or even go a step further by maybe sort of becoming difficult about it. And when we look around us, there's so much chaos, so much uncertainty. And if you were wondering whether I'm going to drop the AI word in this presentation, yes, it happens. It happens right now, and this is the only time I'm going to mention it. There is so much going on in the world of AI and all the shifts. So all of this, if you combine it between chaos and uncertainty and the AI shifts, all of this is amplifying that friction of making people feel uncomfortable, unsure, uncertain. So how do we address this? Well, I argue that if you want to address and manage and reduce chaos and uncertainty, use data. Why? Because every improvement will inevitably leave a trace in data, and data doesn't lie. Data is an evidence of improvement. It only needs interpretation. Metrics will make that uncertainty more visible. You are aware of it, you can manage it, you can address it, you can communicate it. And this helps teams, not just you, whoever, if you're managing it, if the department head is managing it, it helps teams feel anchored. They feel like we know where we're going. It might be uncertain, but I'm still anchored. And that will create a quiet place amid that delivery chaos that might be happening around us. So use data wisely, which will help you enable transparency, and then you can create psychological safety. I'm hoping that the majority of you are aware of the term psychological safety, but for those of you who might not have heard it, psychological safety briefly is being comfortable talking about the uncomfortable, being able to raise your hand and say, I know I'm in charge of this, but I actually do not know how to do this. Or to feel comfortable to say to your managing director or CEO, I disagree with you. I think you're wrong about this, and this is why. And you know there are not going to be any ramifications. So I don't know if this relates to you or otherwise, but this is what psychological safety is. Now, here are some tips from things that I've learned and people who are smarter than me taught me about managing change using metrics. First of all, metrics is your language of progress. Use that to communicate how progress is happening, is taking place. And when you want to start with metrics, start with a few. Please do not start with the dozens. It can be overwhelming. You're not quite sure what's more relevant. And if you want to know what's more relevant, how about you pick or create those metrics with the help of your team? So co-create those metrics with the teams that you're working with, because they are part of the story. Give them that sense of ownership. And when you review them, analyze them, review the trends, not the snapshots, because there might be a story in the gap between the snapshots. Something that might be adding to the context that you might have not seen or understood. And that brings me to the next point about analyzing data in context. What are the internal factors or the external factors that might impact why the data are telling you a certain story here versus there, a story at this time versus that time? And remember that it's all relevant. When we are delivering Agile Maturity assessments, one of the things that we say to teams is that when we get the first data collected, we often understand that it's likely that the level of maturity can influence the type of scores we get from the surveys that we send. And not until the team has achieved a higher level of awareness and understanding of what being truly agile is about, would they actually correct their scores. So you'll see some adjustment stage before people are giving you data that are more reliable. So it's all relevant. And last but not least, I promise you I'm going to mention this before, I'm mentioning this again. Please celebrate progress, celebrate consistency, and don't be tempted by the spikes or the perfection, because that's not what helps you. You want to see progress, you want to see consistency and improve predictability. Now, I appreciate, or I hope that all of us agree that measurement is useful. So why do we measure? And it's in essence, it's about moving away from that guesswork to evidence. In practice, if I ask you, would you drive a car with the dashboard turned off? I'm hoping not. If any of you does that, please stop. Right? But the point that I'm trying to make, which is an obvious point, is that you want to have some element of control, knowledge, safety, certainty about what's going on. So why does measurement matter? We look at data, and I would say that data is, in the world of Agile, is your sixth sense. Data will reduce blindness when there is uncertainty. Data will act as your compass. It will guide you. And watch out, it's not the destination, because that could be harmful. And I'll expand on this later on. And data means continuity. It means there's trust, there's anchoring. And we use data in frameworks. And that's what brings us to talk about metrics. And we argue that being agile means that you respond. You do not react, you respond. You are being informed by metrics and data. You are being enabled to make those informed responses, make those informed decisions. And we say what is measured can be improved. If you can measure it, you can track how you can get it to a better place. And not only are we progressing, but metrics also enable you to make difficult decisions about tweaking or altogether pivoting. There is a person I respect a lot, and I know a lot of people, especially in the Agile world, respect, Edward Deming, who said, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. I love that. This is always relevant. Another saying for him is, in God we trust, and all others must bring data. And it has always been proven true in every organization, every team I work with. And we talk about people with opinions. I would say, tip, watch out for the hippos. Hippos, HIPPOs, the highly paid individuals bring their opinions in because they can dominate or alter what otherwise would be a healthy process in making decisions. So why am I mentioning this? Mentioning this because I referred to Deming, who is the father or one of the founders of the modern quality management system and the concept of Kaizen, continuous improvement and reduction of waste, etc. He also brought the idea of empirical iterative process defined by the PDCA cycle, the plan, do, check, and adapt. That cycle, that iteration of learning by doing, suggests that you can measure, you can look at what you measured, learn from it, and based on your learnings, you can adapt and you repeat over and over and over. I know this is second nature to the majority of you attending this, who I hope already have good level of understanding of what Agile means. But I couldn't emphasize how important this is, because measurable improvement will make it more certain, of course, as I mentioned. And you want to make that measurable improvement continuous. You don't want to turn it into an episodic activity. You don't do it once and forget about it for a while before the pain becomes bigger and bigger, and then you come back to it as if inspired. No, you want to keep it continuous. And metrics can be used in sessions such as retros as conversation starters. They're not scoreboards, and they're certainly not flame for blame and pointing fingers. I want to share with you a very brief case study about one of the clients that we worked with, a fintech company that brought us in to deliver an Agile Maturity assessment. And one of the quick wins was, we need to start capturing data and looking at the story. They didn't do a good job at it. What they did have that was working well is that they had a good level of psychological safety, and they delivered good retros. So there was an opportunity to talk freely and comfortably and in a healthy way about what the data is telling us, but they just didn't track it. And once they started tracking it, within a couple of months, they start realizing and revealing that their processes have seen bottlenecks when it comes to QA stages within their work in progress. And addressing that, prioritizing addressing that, helped them improve throughput massively. So this is just a very simple, very brief, very quick example of how data can help if used as a feedback loop. So if you want to take this away and apply it, I promise you it works time and time again. Just look for what story the data is telling us. And you can go through the following steps. You can benchmark, set a benchmark, then start your diagnosis, and then apply it to prioritize. So your benchmark, it can be an AMA, an Agile Maturity Assessment as a baseline, or anything else that you wish to adopt. Then you perform your diagnosis with the help of metrics. You identify where the blockers are, scope creep, quality drifts, unpredictability, wasted effort, whatever it is. And that helps you prioritize your work and action. That is, you can focus on the few high impact improvements that will lead good value. So using the right tools, Actionable Agile, which obviously something that Mark is going to expand on, helps you reveal those useful insights, reveal the good story that you really want to hear out, so that you can take those priority actions. Diagnosis through data and metrics can reveal a host of issues, a host of problems. You can look at them to reveal bottlenecks, wasted resources, overcommitment, overloaded teams, gaps in the planning, scope creep, as I mentioned before, lack of predictability. And for example, if you pick bottlenecks as a problem, you can essentially rely on data and metrics to reveal through perhaps the work items that are piling up in your WIP. If you look at your aging WIP or work in progress, that will reveal to you that this is an issue, so you can address it. And why does it matter? Well, hopefully it's obvious, but it will reveal the constraints and the waiting time in your system. that you need to address. And before I finish my section for now and hand over to Margot, I'm just going to leave you with one more thought. And that is about where your best bet can be. And it absolutely is data. Why? Because reports year after year tell us how valuable it is. Data-driven organizations are 23 times more likely to acquire customers. They are almost 19 times more likely to be profitable. Acquiring customers, being more profitable. I mean, this is the language that any leadership wants to hear, because that will help you convince them being a more data-driven, or even better, data-informed organization will be a good direction. I think this is a good time for me to hand over to Margot, who will talk to you about flow metrics and how to use it in the context of Agile Maturity. Over to you, Margot.
Thank you, Hassan. So let's talk now. So we've talked about we need metrics. Metrics are good, right? That's what brings power to the discussion. But what metrics should you actually track? So actually, there's a good system called the flow metrics, right? And those metrics are there to kind of help you with this, because basically they help you see what's hidden. So all the data that you were not maybe aware that was hiding, how long things actually took, everything that's kind of invisible that you don't always know but kind of feel. It reveals, it shows you what really happened to your data as well. So you might see things that you were not aware that happen. And if you see things, well, now you actually have something to start discussing about what can you do then, what intervention, what action can you actually take with that. And basically the payoff of it all using data is that then you have something tangible that you can track, like Hassan said before. So what are those metrics exactly? Next. So basically, there are different 4 key flow metrics. We're going to go through 3 now briefly, and then we'll go a bit deeper a bit later into them, right? But basically, we're going to talk about throughput, and it's simply what actually you have done, how many items you've completed, not what you thought was going to happen, right? We don't talk about story points or estimates right now. It's really just the hard cold truth, what you've actually done, right? So that's throughput. Then we have the, sorry, got a bit of delay here. We have the cycle time. So how long did it take you to complete your work, right? Because you might have an idea of what you think it takes, but seeing actually what actually happened can have a big impact on why you're not being very predictable, for example. And then the last but not least will be the whip and the edge of your whip, sorry. So basically, you want to see how much work you're doing, how long it's taking you to do that work, but also what's the edge of the work that's currently in progress, because eventually you'll close those items that become cycle time, and so everything is linked, right? And basically, if you keep track of the age of your work, that's where you can solve, I would say, 75% of the issues you will have. But we'll get a bit deeper about that a little bit later on. So those were the key metrics, right? We'll get that a bit later. So back at you, Hassan.
Thank you, Margot. Well, Margot kindly shared with us what metrics we should follow. And I'm going to talk about what metrics we should avoid. What are the metrics that can harm us, then help us, and why? Eli Goldratt, he's the author of the Haystack Syndrome, also the father of the theory of constraints. He says this in his book: tell me how you measure me, and I'll tell you how I'll behave. In other words, if you measure certain data, that will inspire me or influence my behavior. If it's the right data, the healthy data, my behavior is going to follow, and vice versa. So a word of advice: please avoid the trap of vanity metrics. Vanity metrics are the dopamine of management. They are the metrics that feel good. They look good on reports. But do they mean much? Well, they mean little to sometimes nothing. And even worse, in some cases, they mask the real problem that we're trying to target here. So if you have meetings, regular meetings, a lot of meetings, that doesn't mean that you are mature from an agile point of view with your fancy framework. Story points does not mean real value or progress. Increased number of story points doesn't mean things are improving. And velocity does not reflect or equate to predictability. So do avoid the trap of vanity metrics. There's an interesting report by Scrum.org last year. They're saying that more than 60% of teams report using velocity as a primary success measure. If you're already shifting uncomfortably in your seat, I'm hoping that's the case, because this is exactly how we should react. Because using velocity as a primary success measure, and unsurprisingly, showed that 80% say this is driving the wrong behavior. A typical example of vanity metrics in practice. And my advice for you is really to identify these and avoid them. Let's not try to collect data in order to make our reports look good or please our management, etc. We want to be having a more honest conversation. And one more thing I just want to address, which I see time and time again, is the confusion around KPIs and OKRs. I hope you're familiar with the terms. If you're not, KPIs refer to key performance indicators, while OKRs refer to objectives and key results, a framework that is used commonly in Agile. So you've got metrics, which are just the data points, and they tell us what's happening. Then you got KPIs, the key performance indicators, which are the metrics that are essentially tied to performance. They are telling us how we're doing, how we're performing. And then you got the OKRs, who are reminding us why we're doing. Okay, so you see that metrics measure, KPIs track, and OKRs essentially guide. And it would be very useful to use both correctly in any change exercise, and certainly in your Agile Maturity exercise. And that would be it for me. I think now it's time for me to hand back to Margot.
Yes. All right. So I'm now going to share my screen so I can actually show you a bit more in details. What do we mean by metrics, how you can track them, and how to use them, really. So, Brody, if you stop sharing, then I can take over. All right. No, Brody. I think we may have lost him, or you lost me. Who knows? Let's see. All right. Now I can share my screen. Perfect. All right. So when it comes to metrics, so we've mentioned, cycle time, throughput, stage in progress. The last one is actually the WIP. So this time it's about the number of items in progress. And basically why you should track those is because they will help you see what you need to see to make the right decisions at the right time, right? And those metrics can be tracked in multiple different ways. But here I'm going to show you in ActionableAgile Analytics, which is one of our tools that you can find on the Atlassian Marketplace, on Jira Cloud Data Center, but also on the Azure DevOps and at the standalone. And basically, ActionableAgile Analytics is the flow metrics tool that helps you analyze your data, going through different charts so you can look at your data in different ways, right? So what does it actually look like? So here, for example, that's a cycle time scatter. And here, what you see is items that have been completed in the past. So this chart is super valuable to understand how long does it actually takes you to complete work. So of course, you define a few things, what start and finish means to you, because, matters. Then we can give you some insights on how long does it take for your work to be completed. And here, for example, we can see that 85% of all of our work, so all the dots, right, they're pieces of work, are at 16 or below. So really what you're seeing, so below that red line, is that 85% of all of the work we've done before was done in 16 days or less. Then, is that good? Is that bad? That's for you to know with your context, right? But let's say you work in 2-week sprints. Well, that's not too bad then. Most of your work can be started and finished within a sprint. That's great. If you're completely far off, then that's when you need to be able to identify why were those items that took way longer to be completed and what happened, right? So when you want to do a kind of a retrospective on what happened, that's that type of data that will help you see, okay, why didn't we hit our SLAs? Well, for example, this item was stuck for 22 days in dev done in the queuing stage. So then you can start investigating with the team, right? So you start first with seeing the data, then you can investigate, and that should trigger some really good conversation about what happened. So you'll see, that's a recurring theme when it comes to metrics. Then we also have a lovely chart called the aging work in progress chart. And this time it's all about monitoring the work that is in progress, right? So this is the perfect chart to pull when you want to run your dailies with the team, right? Okay, so because here you can see how much work is in progress, where in your workflow, and how old it currently is. And you can even highlight additional information, like you can display the cycle time information from what has been completed, so you can compare what's happening today with what happened before. And then, of course, you can have different color scheme to kind of help you see this transition between each of the different stages. So how the work that's in progress today, how is that doing compared to what you've done before? Because it's very easy to see when you're late, in testing the last column on your active stages, right? But what about when you just started on working on something? How do you know if there's already a signal that's different? And here, what you see on my screen, you can see that this item that's surrounded by white is older than 95% of all the work that has gone through analysis active so far. So that's probably a strong signal that something is different with this piece of work. So you can use the data to kind of trigger here the conversation around, okay, but what should we do about it? It's like, well, actually, you ask Daniel, the developer, it's like, but actually, we're missing requirements. There's things that haven't been defined, so we got stuck. Okay, but then what do we do to make it unstuck, right? So that's the whole point of those metrics, making sure that you see what you need to see so you can let the work flow, right? Because a strong point when it comes to those is that if you let the work just age and die on your board and no one's really taking care of it because, but new priorities, something was not ready, someone is on vacation, well, those items are just aging for no reason. And eventually, when, you will close them, that's what will kill your cycle time. And you have those weird outliers that just skew absolutely everything. So if you keep a tight ship on this chart in your dailies, you make sure that the work get unstuck when you can, that you have as few outliers as you can, eventually, that's what will lead to lower cycle time, and that will make you more predictable. Just saying. This chart is amazing. And you can also replay what happened throughout your sprint using this chart. So it's really good to figure out what needs to be addressed. Yes, so here, for example, you can address, should we focus on the oldest item? Should we focus on something we just started working on, but that's already behaving differently? It's all about seeing it so you can act on it. The next metric, last but not least, well, really there's one more, ignore what I just said. It's the throughput. So we already mentioned it, how many items were completed. And here, what's really important is that we include everything, right? Weekends, red days, banking holidays, vacation, because you want to take into account all the work that you do and see patterns, right? Because here, that's what will help you guide the decision around, okay, has something changed? Are we predictable? Do we release at a regular cadence? Do we have strong patterns? Has anything changed in the past X weeks, a month, or sprint, right? It's all about being aware of what's happening, right? And this data is super important, throughput, because that's the key to running successful Monte Carlo simulations to forecast the future. That's out of scope for this webinar, but there will be more on this at a later point. And this time, that's the last metric. It's about the WIP, right? How many items were in progress on any given day? And remember, data without context means absolutely nothing. So here, when you look at this, it's always important to see, okay, but what happened for a WIP to go down? Well, to summer vacation, so that makes sense, right? Or people were sick, or, we increase our team size, so now it's increasing. Always look at the data with the context behind it. So why am I showing you all of this, and why are those metrics important? Because you don't need to track 50,000 different things to make your dashboard look all shiny and good and show how awesome you are. Those 4 metrics really should be able to help you with this, right? But something that's very important, though, when it comes to metrics, if you focus on only one, that's not great, because that's not going to give you the whole story, what's happening. You could have an amazing cycle time. You're respecting what your managers want. But if you look at the age of your work in progress, it's a catastrophe. It's just you haven't paid the price yet, right? Or that could be because your WIP is way too high. So because you have so much in progress, you don't actually manage to do anything. So, you need to look at those in tandem, right, together. Controlling the age of your work in progress is the key. If there's one chart, one metric you should actually focus on when it comes to the discussion part, like I said, you shouldn't just focus on this, but if you look at this one and make sure to have the right conversation, this is what will help you become more predictable. And then one of my favorite one, remember the correlation between the metrics with Little's Law. We don't have time to go too deep into it right now, but we have a lot of really good blog posts and many good documentation on Little's Law, which is kind of the relation that if you have too much in progress, it's going to take you a very long time to do the work. So actually you manage to accomplish less in the end. So that's how those metrics are usually linked. It's not always true, but it's true in a lot of cases. So that was my part on the metrics. Brody, you're back.
I'm back. Hassan, you might need to switch your camera on as well. Thank you so much to both of you guys for preparing all that for us, and thank you to everyone in the chat. It's been going bloody bananas with the movie titles. I love it. It's we'll probably do this again, and yeah, we'll be sure to reach out to you guys after for the movie titles, whoever won that, and we'll get you a prize. Great. So now what we are going to move on to is some live Q&A. So thanks to everyone that's been submitting those as we have been going. I might try and find one that we haven't already answered. Okay, we'll start this one. So we have one from Kiona. Should we go by 95% or 85%? So Margot, maybe this one's best suited for you. So if you want to explain maybe the context of this and then answer the question, that'll be great.
Exactly. So should we go by 95% or 85%? That kind of depends actually on what you're trying to measure. Because I would say usually 85%, that's what people follow and they're okay with this. 95% depends on how much risk you're willing to get. Because usually if you track those metrics, it's about answering the question, when will something be done, right? So if you look at your cycle time, see that 85% of your work is done in 16 days or less. That means that 15% of the time it takes longer. So if you're happy to focus on, this value, that's great. Now, I know that sometimes you need a higher confidence level because it's very sensitive work. So then 95 might be the best. It all depends. There's kind of usually a pushback between managers wanted a better number, but then you might not have the same confidence level. So it really depends. I'm sorry. I don't have a better one.
No, that's perfect. There's been quite a popular question. I can't bring it up. I can bring it up. Here we go. Hassan, you were helping to answer this one, so maybe we can go into a bit more detail. Keenan's given you an answer recently on this one, if you can see that.
Yeah.
But yeah, what would you recommend? Maybe you can just recap the whole answer for everyone.
Yeah, I guess it's just all about the conversation. What is the intended outcome behind the instruction to reduce cycle time? But as I say, if you have come to a good understanding as what the intended outcome, indeed attending to cycle time is the key here, then I would say, go through the diagnosis steps that I mentioned. You look at specific metrics that help you attend to this or address this. And in this case, it is the aging WIP, because it allows you to reveal bottlenecks. It may start a conversation around dependencies. Maybe the teams are being siloed and it's taking ages for a dependency to be attended to or even revealed earlier on. And depending on what stage of WIP, that might tell you an interesting story here. That would be my brief answer, obviously within the limited context that we know.
Yeah, of course. Okay, we have a common one that we get all the time here at 55 Degrees. Margot, this is probably your bread and butter. Can we remove weekends from throughput?
Not at the moment. So right now we show everything because it makes more sense to include it. And we'll make sure to drop some, we have some good videos from Daniel Vacanti around that, and weekends, and if should you exclude weekends from cycle time and all of those. And the thing is that with throughput, you want to include it. So especially if you have team moving, traveling, working on different time zones, work might be forgotten if you exclude the weekends, because you might be finishing something later or something like that. So we can't exclude it. And it makes even more sense because, like I said, we use the throughput data to run simulation to help you forecast how much work you're likely to do. So by including those zeros, days when nothing gets done, we give you a forecast in calendar days as well, and not just business days. So it puts everything on the same level and makes it a lot easier to answer when will it be done without having to do any math. Because you don't need to add weekends and red days, and did you start on a Friday, but it was a red day on that day. It just makes everything a lot more efficient that way. Now, I know that for some teams, it would make sense to remove it, especially when it comes to short cycle times or when you do services. So that's something we are considering. We're still open to it. If you have a great case to do on that, just make sure to reach out to us. We would love to chit chat with you on that.
Nice one. I'm going to get this one up from Louise, actually. I really, really like this one. Hassan. Okay, so context is everything and relative to each team. When you're starting with a new team, what would you recommend as a benchmark for measuring success?
I have to admit, this is one of the things that I try to still experiment with. I appreciate that it's probably healthy to just observe the team where they are, like try not to change or drive anything. In the end of the day, especially as an agile coach, you sit there to try and help the team find the answers within. I know this sounds a bit of a cliche, but what I'm trying to say is essentially they have the tools. They just need that guidance that is backed with knowledge to understand what can get us to improve. Like start from wherever point you want to start. As long as you're improving, as long as there's progress, there's a learning iteration going on, you've achieved 50% of what you need to do. The rest of it is about setting yourself those targets perhaps, and hopefully it will be tied to some transparent reasons or intended outcomes rather than, as Keenan was mentioned earlier, you need to reduce cycle time by 10%. Don't ask any more questions. I hope that's not what's going on, but this would be my immediate knee-jerk sort of response. Start from where they are, and as long as the focus is not about the benchmark, it's about progress, then you are heading in the right direction.
Awesome. Okay, we have one here from Ben. I might bring this one up. This one's a bit of a long-winded one, so I'll give you some time to read it, and whoever wants to take this one can let it fly. I'll let the two of you decide for this one. Margot, you're looking pretty keenly at it though, so.
Yeah, I'm reading it to make sure. Yeah, it's a good mix. So I think, yeah, because now I'm looking at your workflow. So it's backlog, queue, in progress, and done. So you really have just one in progress status. So I wonder how that would help see.
It's also okay for us to reach out after, Margot, if you want to.
Yeah, I'm thinking because I would like more context, I would say, around this, into why it's like this.
Ben will reach out after. Unless you have something to add, Hassan.
No, I think a little bit more context would help us. But again, that was the first thing that I went to, understanding that the web stage has not gone any further granular level. So yeah, any more context would be helpful, but would be happy to share my thoughts on that.
Great. Okay, so we have some pre-submitted questions that we also wanted to get to now. We had so many of them come through, so apologies if we don't share yours here, but we will write to you afterwards. But we had, quite a lot, but this is one of the ones I particularly liked. Hassan has actually already written out an answer for this one because we were preparing prior, but maybe Hassan, if you're able to elaborate on this one a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is very common, and sometimes it can kill the initiative even before it starts. What I would say is try to understand what leadership sees, or senior management sees, as good enough reason to invest towards this initiative. Because if you understand what connects them emotionally to the project, you've got the lead to get them to sign to it, and beyond that, even support it. So as I mentioned before, if you use factors such as profitability or winning additional customers, when you start telling them, look, the data and the reports are telling us this, here's an example, here's a case study, here are the experts who know why this is useful. If you give them that premise that if we improve things in this way, and you give them transparency and communicate with data, which is your language of progress over time, that will lead us to improve the number of clients that we get or how profitable we are. I think most managers will react more positively than not to this. So I would just say, understand what their pain points are from a business perspective, and use that as your driver, as your factor to convince them.
Great. Thanks, Hassan. Okay, so I might pull up another pre-submitted one here as well. Okay, so what I might bring up here is, how about some strategies, Hassan? So when it comes to helping strategies to help prevent employees from burning out. So obviously, if you're trying to implement constant change, it can be challenging. What would be your advice in this situation?
Yeah, this happens when there's a lack of attention to what causes delays or overcommitment. One of the things that tend to pop up time and time again is product ownership. Because if you have a strong product ownership, or the equivalent in any other framework, however you see it, then you don't have the element of control and focus and allowing the team to self-organize and be left to do their own job. They are always constantly bombarded by either new requests or sometimes the constant change. If you're constantly changing things that they didn't feel they own or are part of, that equally tends to burnout of employees. So it might be worth looking at factors such as cycle time stability, because that might reveal to you in the first instance that there is burnout. But more importantly is that do not be careful about imposing constant change fatigue that will lead to the employees being burned out. Let them be part of the conversation and part of the decision making if you can. One last thing I want to mention about is OKRs, because this is also relevant to a lot of teams. Many companies go for OKRs, they love it, they see the value of it, but they sort of produce and generate them without consulting their own teams. And there's a recommendation for splitting it 60-40 or 50-50, where senior management do work with teams and squad level stakeholders in defining what objectives they want to aim for and how they can measure that through their key results.
Brilliant. Pardon me. So we're nearly towards the end of the webinar. We might finish up with one last question, which is maybe one of the more important ones if you're looking to get started. And again, Margot, this is probably right up your alley. How would you define the success of your, or if you could use only one metric, how would you define the success, and what would that look like and why?
If you can only use one metric,
Sorry, I've caught you off guard here with this one. Maybe Hassan, jump in. Feel free to jump in.
You shouldn't track just one metric, because one by itself won't tell you the whole story. So to track your day-to-day work and make sure that you get successful metric everywhere, that's the age of your work in progress. That's really what will drive the right things. But don't just look at one metric, but look at the cycle time, your throughput, and your WIP. I think if you focus on the 4 key flow metrics, honestly, those 4 ones should be able to help you see if you're predictable, if you are stable, if you are consistent, or if there's any changes. Or so not only one, I would say 4, the 4 key flow metrics.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, we've had a webinar, guys. Thank you to Margot, and thank you to Hassan. You guys are so brilliant at what you do, and I appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge with everyone that joined as well. So final thanks to the audience. You guys are awesome. The chat has been brilliant today. Love to see that energy. We'll reach out to the prize winners as well following the webinar, and also to everyone that submitted a question that maybe we didn't get to. You will hear from us. That's my promise to you. So thank you so much, and we'll see you for the next one.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.